Hey, this is Carlos. Welcome back. And on today's Dating Advice Guru, Dating Secrets for Unlocking His Heart, I want to talk a little bit about how to get a guy to notice you. This little topic of competing for a guy's attention and competing in general for women. You see, women have a reputation for being a bit catty with each other. I know, you're saying, no way. But men also have, of course, a reputation for being competitive, but in a different way. Typically, it's in a very specific environment. We're competitive about sports and maybe even certain kinds of gaming. And, of course, it's always offset by a certain amount of the teamwork and camaraderie that comes along with that. It's interesting that a guy can compete a little bit differently than women. And this is an interesting kind of notion because there's actually a bit of a paradox here, since women are actually less competitive with each other when they're in social situations or they're outside of the workplace. So how do we reconcile this? How can we reconcile the whole cattiness of women with a healthy competitive drive? Because we do know that women do have a competitive drive. Well, there's competitive and cooperative. And this is one of again, the paradox of a woman's competitive drive is that she's also cooperative in social environments. And it goes back to that whole feeling for a woman that she has to still be a part of the group or a part of the social norm. You see, women learn that they're not supposed to be very competitive or triumph over other women, or even another man at another's expense. And a woman's competitiveness usually can't be shared openly or even really jokingly with other people. What happens is that desire for competition that we all have, and it's also in women, it becomes pushed down below the surface, becomes what they call sublimated. And sometimes it can fight its way out and it becomes an unhealthy trait. So what could have actually been a healthy competition among women usually becomes a hidden feeling of envy and desire for the other person to fail. And then, of course, we have the emotions that come after that, right? Which are guilt and shame. Women are often attributed to this ability to be tuned in and sensitive to other people's feelings. And what happens is that a woman will project her own insecurities or her own feelings for the other person because she knows how it would feel to her, right? So she can project her feelings over the other person, and then what happens? You feel bad or guilty about your own successes in life. So women end up learning how to feel guilty for being happy and being successful. They interpret their own success as being hurtful to their friend. And as you can tell, that's not a way to attract a guy or get a guy. So what do? Well, most women will, again, hide their accomplishments and hide their successes from their female friends. I'll give you an example of this. If a woman, maybe she becomes successful at her diet and her exercise program, she manages to lose a bunch of pounds, and she goes out with a friend who's having trouble. She's struggling. She's a little on the heavier side. Well, guess what would happen? If that woman decides to order something a little bit decadent, you're not going to say anything about it, and you're also going to feel a little guilty about your own success. So what'll happen is you'll probably have some of that dessert you don't want just to go along. It's kind of an odd little paradox there. So what'll happen is it'll come down to a woman being, well, self-sabotaging. It can go so far as to enable some self-sabotaging behaviors like eating high-calorie food when you really don't want to. So the funny thing is, though, that women don't feel this way when they're around men because they know that men have a different kind of competitive environment, a different kind of competitive social structure, if you will. Very often a woman doesn't have any problem competing with a guy that she knows because she doesn't have to suffer the same kind of consequences or even it doesn't even create the same kind of feelings. So what happens is that women end up competing with men more often than women, and that often gets in the way, again, of her being able to feel or be attractive to a guy. And yes, it's going to make it very difficult for a guy to notice you. I mean, he'll notice you, but not in the right way if you're competing with him. So competition with men also, we know, isn't a positive attraction dynamic. So what can you do? How can you make this healthy? Well, the first thing is to enable your own healthy competitive drive, okay? Because women have this dynamic of making herself look less threatening to be more appealing to other people. This dynamic, by the way, is called diminishing, and you may have heard it in psychological or articles on psychology about women. Women diminish their own accomplishments, diminishing your success, simply to make yourself look more palatable to other people, especially other women. And again, if you want to get a guy, it's not going to be something that's going to be attractive if you lower your social value. So after we get past some of these unhealthy cycles, how do you enable this healthy drive? Well, first off, you want to make sure that your own self-worth and your own self-confidence is being attended to. You have to make sure that that's a priority in your life. You've got to focus on it. Make sure that it's something you're committed to working on, because frankly, other people are not going to work on that for you. Hell, we know that sometimes even your family will work to bring that down. They do it playfully, but they don't realize sometimes the effect it has on us. And again, you want to make sure that you're seeing to it that it's your priority. Now, very often you'll also need to make sure that your own good fortune, your own happiness, and your own success can be used to help other people. That's a key critical difference between men and women, is that if your success is helping other people, other women, other men, other people in some way, it will be a success that you can brag about. It's something, well, not necessarily brag about, but something you can put out there. You also have to give yourself permission. All too often, I coach women who feel like they can't be happy with when their partner or their spouse or their boyfriend is unhappy. And this is actually more of a boundary issue. It's an emotional boundary issue. It's very difficult for certain women to do this, to be able to feel good when their boyfriend is unhappy, for example, because they feel somehow responsible, or that they have to do something to help alleviate the situation or to change the situation, that they need to be in there. Or it's either that or their nurturing edge or the accountability that she feels she has within the relationship. So once you can maintain those good, healthy emotional boundaries, that you can see that your actual emotional state does not overlap as much as you might think with your spouse or partner, and his does not necessarily overlap with yours. It is possible for you to feel okay and good about yourself if your partner's having a bad day. It's just their emotional state and their situation. The more you can separate yourself from that, the healthier your relationship will be. Now, one of the most important skills you can learn is how to read men, and not only reading yourself, but reading other people. Women have this inherently and intuitively, but very often they second guess it, because with men, it just seems to be different, right? He's a totally different creature. He's confusing. How the heck do you understand a guy? Well, there are easy signals you can learn to understand how to read his signals. Go on over to datingadviceguru.com/read his signals, where I'll tell you a little bit about how you can learn the key signals that will tell you whether or not he really loves you, whether he's really in the relationship, whether he's ready to commit, all the important signals that matter to you. Go on over to datingadviceguru.com/read his signals. And I'll be talking again soon. This is Carlos Cavallo.